What's up, you guys? Thanks for clicking on this video. We're going to be doing our first ever kind of breaking down and comparing two characters. I'll be showing different clips from the movies as we talk about them. But when we're done, make sure you guys go vote in the comments. Who would you pick? Whether if you just like that character more, you think they have a better story, whatever the reason is, go vote down in the comments. And make sure you subscribe to this channel if you're new. I do a bunch of different Star Wars discussions here. We'll keep that coming as time goes on. So thank you guys for watching. Again, like and subscribe to this channel, and let's get into it.
So let's get started with Luke, the farm boy from Tatooine. Wow, there's a lot to say. Obviously, Luke is the main character of Star Wars from the original trilogy. Probably the most, after Darth Vader, probably the most popular and recognizable. Had a great story in the original trilogy. Just kind of forced in by destiny into the fight against the Empire, and him being the son of Anakin and Vader, all that stuff would eventually be revealed. But watching him go through that journey from being resistant, obviously one of my favorite moments in Star Wars is when he comes back to his home, and that the Force music plays by John Williams. Beautiful music there. Great Star Wars scene, and he's looking at his burned village, thrusted into a battle he never would have thought just a few days ago that he'd be brought into. Just real humble beginnings from Luke as he became one of the most powerful Jedi we had seen. Started getting trained by Ben Kenobi, Yoda, two Jedi Masters that we get to see in the Clone Wars, and they were great mentors to him. Obviously Ben withheld some truths about his father to him, but I think a lot of people understood Ben in that moment. He didn't think that with what Luke knew at that time that it'd be a good thing to tell him that, and where would that lead him? How would that encounter with Vader on Bespin have gone had Luke known from the beginning that was his father? Would he have been just a little more willing to listen to him and try to get to know him? I don't know. That's just something we'll never get to know. But I thought that Ben was a great mentor. Obviously Yoda as well, training him. Those are two great masters that Luke was able to have by his side as he was, as I said, thrust in the battle against the Empire, and really was the only lone Force user that was, willing to do some hands-on engagement in those fights. Yoda was just too old, and Ben was, he was a hermit. He wasn't getting involved, so it was really up to Luke and the rebels to get that done. The things that are really admirable about Luke's character, though, for me, just stem from his unwavering faith that his father could be turned, that there was still good in him. Always wanting to stick up for his friends and save them no matter what, even being told. I know if I was in the situation being trained by Yoda, if Yoda was like, no, like you can't go save them, like I know you want to, but he can't do that, I would have listened to Yoda. Like, he's the one that taught me all this stuff, and seems to have all these prophecies and things like that. Like, maybe he just knows that if I go there, I will perish. So but Luke did what his heart told him to do, and he trusted himself, trusted the Force, trusted his heart, and it all worked out for him. Luke's a character that we also get to see develop through The Last Jedi, and I was actually one who did not mind the events that take place in The Last Jedi, or I guess just the sequel trilogy, with Luke Skywalker, where he at some point decides he's going to take on a new batch of students, including his nephew Ben Solo, and things don't go well. We see, and I mentioned it in my review, but the visions that the Skywalkers have always been their downfall. Anakin's visions of his mother dying is what caused him to go and need to save her. Anakin's vision of Padme dying is what causes him to ultimately turn to the dark side, and then here it is for Luke. His visions, whatever he saw Ben Solo doing, it was bad enough that in the moment he thought he could stop it. Like he said, he thought he could stop it. It passed, but it was too late. To Ben, he had already seen the saber out, and I'm sure Ben had been getting told from Snoke or Palpatine, however you want to look at it, that Luke was not the right master for him, was going to turn against him, that Luke was scared of his power. So all that stuff kind of led to that, and you could see for someone like Luke, after that happens, him kind of wanting to go in exile. Like, here he is, he didn't want to start an order anyway because of what might happen, and then it happened all because of the same reasons that has failed the Jedi and failed the Skywalkers in the past, them being scared of the dark side, or just scared someone's going to turn, and them having all these dogmatic views. That's what really caused Luke to act the way he did in that moment. If he didn't think so, black and white, maybe he could have really tried to help Ben in that moment and really try to get to be on his side and see him and just be a father figure for him. But instead he acted the way he did, and that's unfortunate. But I think that's all just a part of the character's development. Again, not all characters or heroes are great and then or do great things all the time. And then Luke in The Rise of Skywalker, he says to Rey, I was wrong about a lot of the things that I've done and said. I shouldn't have went into exile. The Jedi don't need to end. And he kind of takes that back and he tries to help Rey and redeem himself as much as possible. That kind of is the last we see of his character. He's a Force ghost at that time. Luke's a really good character. Again, he's one of the most popular in Star Wars. I really like him as a Jedi. And just again as a character, his story in the original trilogy is really, really inspiring, and it really captures what the Star Wars, the overall Star Wars story means to a lot of people. So, got to give a lot of credit to Luke and how he was written. And his story again starts out at the end of the prequels, just being born and all that stuff we know. It's not really about Anakin, but we know all about that, and then continuing all the way through the Last Jedi. Now, Rey starts in a very familiar looking place as Luke on Jakku instead of Tatooine, a desert planet. But the biggest difference between the two when we're introduced to him is that she's a lot more self-sufficient. Luke is still living with his aunt and uncle and doing chores, while Rey is scavenging, walkers and star destroyers on Jakku, and she's fighting for herself. She's able to fight off other gangsters and people trying to steal stuff from her, and selling parts and doing just again a lot more self-sufficient, which some people might like that a little better, but some people might like the humble beginnings that Luke kind of came from as well. So but quickly we get to see that she has a lot of abilities and a lot of different talents, from her scavenging and just working with Unkar. She can repair ships, she can pilot them. She's also, again, like I mentioned, a great warrior. Something that sticks out right away again is just her bravery, and just like she's not ever scared, like to get in and get her hands dirty. Either whether fighting off or even when she gets her lightsaber, she's very quick to show that side of her. And now that we kind of know the Palpatine angle, which again was revealed to us in The Rise of Skywalker, we can look back in new context and you always saw it before, but she flirts with the dark side all the time. In each of the movies, she shows that side of her. In The Force Awakens, her fight against Kylo, I mean, when she starts just feels and brings the Force in, she starts going real aggressive at Kylo, very similar to Luke in Return of the Jedi when he was fighting against Vader, when he chopped off his hand there. So Rey does that a few times in The Last Jedi too, when she was Luke was teaching her a lesson. He was like, you went straight to the dark. So she's had that dark side tendency in her, and obviously in The Rise of Skywalker, she's scared of it because she sees visions of herself on the throne, and she's like, man, like I know like what I can do. I know what I'm capable of, like, and she's fearful. And I think that was a great way to kind of connect with that character and connect with her struggle, her inner demons even more so. And that's later on in her story. Earlier in her story, her thing was her family, her heritage. She felt that something important was with them, or that they were supposed to come back. They had some purpose that she just knew it. She could feel it. But Maz had to be the one to tell her that ultimately, they weren't going to be coming back. Whoever she was waiting for wasn't going to come back to save her or come get her. And, that was also a big moment for her character. She, like Luke, rejected her initial call to the fight. She gets that Force vision once she touches the Skywalker saber and sees different things. She sees the future, she sees the past, she sees things that lightsaber had, been through. She sees a lot, and it was just too much for her all in that moment. And it wasn't really till, again, she was forced into it, forced into the action. She had no choice because her friends and everybody, she had made friends with was getting in and in trouble, in danger. And she had seen the threat of the First Order. So that's her character. I think that she was really made whole. I don't want to say made whole. I know a lot of people did like the Rey Nobody, but like I mentioned in my review, I still think she keeps the Rey Nobody, and that's why when she says Rey Skywalker, it was very important for her, because she did not know who she was. Like, but now she can say, you know what, like I'm Rey Skywalker, and she can still be, no matter who you are, you can be from this terrible, evil Sith Lord Palpatine, right, and still overcome that and do good and make your own way, and become who you want to be. You don't have to be just tied to whatever your heritage said, good or bad. So I think that's really what her story represents, and I think it's really powerful. Rey's a character I really enjoyed. Regardless of what you think about the sequel trilogy, I did really like Rey, and I would like to see in the future, see where her character goes. I wouldn't be mad at that at all.
All right, now guys, this is a tough task for me. Just gonna be completely open. I've loved Rey since Force Awakens. She was one of my favorite Star Wars characters since the start. I wish they had done a little more with her in The Last Jedi. And when you kind of look at this trilogy as a whole, as much as I liked The Last Jedi more than most. When you look at the trilogy, it was definitely the movie that could have been taken a different direction when you look at where things ultimately went. I mean, it could have did more to show Finn's Force sensitivity. It could have did more to show that Rey could have been a Palpatine and different things. But that's not what this is about. I just wanted to say that I do really enjoy the Rey character. I love her spirit. I love her bravery and all that. But Luke too, I love him as well. Again, I like his coming around in The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, and Return of the Jedi. Just his, he comes in with that swag, that Jedi swag, where he's just so confident, and nothing was gonna take him down. At that moment, he knew what was gonna happen. Like, he was so confident and sure in that. So it's hard for me to really judge this and say which one is better, especially when you look at something like this. I started doing something like this over on my sports channel where I'm breaking down athletes, and that's different. I can say, LeBron is better than Dwayne Wade, and I can give you reasons as to why he's the better player. But here, it's, this is not, we're talking about fictional characters. It's going to be with whoever you guys like, So for me, I think I like Rey as a character more, but I can definitely say that Luke is the one that has the better story. His story, it fits the entire Skywalker saga. It pretty much is the Star Wars story, that the story that Luke goes on in the original trilogy. That's the original. That's what people know, like, as the official Star Wars story, and it is better. It ties together, it flows together a little cleaner than Rey's does, in my opinion. So I'm not gonna go wrong with you either way. Like, whichever one you pick, that's fine with me. I think the reasons I liked Rey, I kind of talked about them, but she's also cute. I guess Daisy Ridley, she looked good. So I don't know if that's another part of it, but I'm sure that has something to do with it. Because when I try to think of like story thing, there's not a whole lot there. I did like Rey Palpatine. That just kind of worked for me. To me, it just kind of it cemented her place within the Skywalker saga. It was fine with her being a nobody, but if she's a nobody, then like, why is she the main character of the Skywalker saga? I think that if they're going to continue the legacy of Star Wars with it being the Skywalker saga, if this was like the High Republic stuff and there was some Rey girl nobody like that'd be different. But the Skywalker saga, they needed to have the main character had to be somewhat tied to the story of Anakin or Luke or Palpatine, or like somebody that we knew about. So in my opinion, so I think that the Rey Palpatine stuff definitely worked for me. But then Luke, again, that's the OG Star Wars character, the OG Jedi. I really like Luke too, so I can't go wrong. Again, so I think Rey, I prefer Rey as a character more. I just like her, but Luke is actually, in my opinion, has the better story and just more encompasses what Star Wars is about. So again, let me know in the comments what you guys think. Make sure you like this video, subscribe if you're new, and I'll be checking out your votes and seeing who ends up being on top. Thank you.